What if the most dangerous threat to our future is not ignorance, but selective amnesia? We think we've evolved. We believe we're smarter than those who came before us. But history tells a different story. One where progress is often an illusion, and arrogance is a recurring theme. The empires that fell, the wars that raged, the freedoms lost, all had warnings. All had patterns. And yet, here we are, still walking the same path with new shoes, convinced we're going somewhere different. We love to believe that we learn from our mistakes. It's a comforting thought. But the truth is we don't. We repeat them, again and again, sometimes faster, sometimes louder, sometimes with more technology. But the core mistake is the same. We forget. Or worse, we remember, but choose not to care. We prioritize convenience over consequence, comfort over clarity. Human history is a cycle of warning signs ignored, of lessons left unread. It's not because the information isn't there, it's because we resist discomfort. To truly learn from the past means we must admit we were wrong, that the systems we trusted failed, that the heroes we admired were flawed. And that's hard. It threatens identity, culture, even nationhood. So instead, we simplify, we rewrite, we sanitize. Modern life only makes this easier. Our attention is fragmented. We chase headlines, not context. We scroll past complexity, craving instant meaning. And in doing so, we miss the slow erosion happening underneath. History doesn't usually knock on the door with a bang. It creeps in quietly while we're busy with the next distraction. And when collapse finally comes, we act surprised. But it's never truly sudden. It's built on years, decades of ignored signals. We want to believe this time it's different, but it rarely is. The symbols change, but the story remains the same. This isn't about nostalgia for the past. It's about refusing to be fooled by repetition. It's about recognizing that the biggest red flag of all is believing we're immune to what destroyed others. Pride in our modern systems means nothing if we don't question them. Progress means nothing if it's only surface deep. History offers us endless mirrors, but we look away because those reflections are uncomfortable. They show us what we refuse to see, that maybe we are not as evolved as we pretend, that maybe the downfall of civilizations isn't a matter of time, it's a matter of denial. No one can force us to learn. No one can make us change. But if we continue to close our eyes to the past, we'll wake up in a future shaped by the very failures we refuse to confront. And by then, it might be too late. And perhaps that's the real tragedy of human history. Not that we fall, but that we fall in the same way, over and over, with the illusion that it's never happened before. Aldous Huxley was not just warning us with dystopian fiction. He was diagnosing a mental pattern, a civilizational blind spot. When he said that men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history, it wasn't just a clever paradox. It was a warning cloaked as wisdom. History doesn't just repeat, it rhymes, as Mark Twain once said. But those rhymes are not poetic. They're haunting. The rise of authoritarianism, the scapegoating of minorities, the erosion of truth for the comfort of narrative. All of these are familiar verses in humanity's tragic ballad. We like to place blame on individual villains. We talk about bad apples, tyrants, dictators, corrupt leaders. But the truth is more uncomfortable. These figures rise not in a vacuum, but in soil we collectively till. Apathy, fear, and the collective refusal to remember. Huxley's dystopia in Brave New World was never about brute force. It was about engineered indifference, a society so drugged by pleasure and distraction that truth became irrelevant. Sound familiar? And the tools of forgetting have evolved. We now have the technology to archive everything, yet we remember less. Endless access, infinite scroll, and still, we forget the lessons of war, of empire, of collapse. We reduce genocide to statistics. We compress revolutions into hashtags. We let convenience replace confrontation. George Orwell feared censorship. Huxley feared irrelevance. And perhaps both were right, but in ways we still underestimate. Orwell imagined a boot stamping on a human face forever. Huxley warned of a world where no one cared enough to notice. And while Orwell gave us a vision of fear, Huxley handed us the mirror. He warned that we'd grow to love our own chains, that comfort would become our prison. Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored, he wrote. And yet, we act as if they do. We act as if historical wounds don't scar, as if denial is a disinfectant. But history waits, patiently, like a teacher whose warnings go unheard until the test arrives. And by then, it's too late. The fall of Rome, the collapse of Weimar Germany, the slow death of democracies, all began not with a bang, but with a shrug, a quiet surrender to convenience, to normalcy, to the belief that it can't happen here. It can. It already has. And it will again, unless we break the pattern. Because the truth is, we don't need new information. We need new memory. We need to feel the weight of history, not just study it. To listen not just with our intellect, but with moral urgency. The past is not dead. It's not even past, as Faulkner said. It lives in our decisions, in our institutions, in our silence. So the question is no longer whether history will repeat itself. The question is, will we remember in time to stop it? History doesn't whisper, it warns loudly. Consider the fall of the Roman Republic, not the empire, but the Republic. It didn't collapse because of foreign invasion. It rotted from within. Political polarization, the erosion of civic trust, the weaponization of fear. Wealth inequality reached unbearable levels, and populist strongmen offered not solutions, but enemies. Sound eerily familiar? This isn't about Rome. It's about the cycles we refuse to see. In the 1930s Germany, the lessons were there. Economic despair, fragile democracy, rising nationalism. People were angry, afraid, disoriented. And then came the promise of order, of restoration, of greatness. What followed was a nightmare written in blood. Yet even today, we treat fascism as a relic, not a symptom that reemerges in different forms, through new slogans, new uniforms, but the same ancient hunger for control. Huxley understood that forgetting isn't passive, it's a choice. And often it's a seductive one. As philosopher George Santayana warned, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But here's the twist. Remembering is painful. That's why we avoid it. That's why we outsource memory to textbooks, to holidays, to museums, places we visit, not realities we live by. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is history too, our unconscious, unexamined past, driving our collective future. Huxley's brilliance was in showing how systemic forgetting could become normalized. In Brave New World, memory was not erased. It was drowned in comfort. No need for oppression when people have no desire for truth. Simone Weil, another sharp mind of the 20th century, wrote that, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." In a world of distractions, attention becomes resistance. To remember is to fight, to pay attention to patterns, to cycles, to wounds that never fully healed. That is how we avoid becoming pawns in someone else's script. But here's the catch. Algorithms do not reward reflection. They reward outrage, noise, novelty. And so we scroll past the signs. We laugh at the absurdity of it all. We bury the patterns in memes and headlines. But history keeps knocking, louder and louder. Nietzsche once asked, "What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you and say, 'This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more?' What he called the eternal recurrence. His point? If history were to loop endlessly, would we still choose to live the same way? Would we still commit the same blind errors, make the same moral compromises, allow the same lies to go unchallenged? Huxley's grim lesson, that we fail to learn from history, is mirrored in Nietzsche's challenge. Because to truly learn, we must confront, and confrontation means discomfort. Most people prefer sweet illusions over bitter truths, or as Nietzsche bluntly put it, Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. This is where modern society often fails. We confuse information with wisdom. We gather data, scroll endlessly, yet make no time to reflect. We celebrate surface-level awareness while avoiding depth. Nietzsche foresaw this in his critique of modernity's last man, a creature who avoids pain, avoids risk, avoids greatness, and instead chooses numb comfort. Sound familiar? Huxley's Brave New World isn't a prophecy, it's a diagnosis. If this truth resonates with you, that we keep repeating the past because we refuse to face it, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop scrolling and start thinking. History is not just about what happened, it's about what keeps happening. So here's the question. Are you brave enough to confront the truth you're ignoring? If this made you pause, even for a second, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still thinks history is just old news. Let's stop pretending. Let's start paying attention. And if you want more uncomfortable truths from Huxley, Nietzsche, and the thinkers who saw through the illusion, stick around. This is just the beginning.